The Disrupt Education vlog can be found on YouTube. To hear it in podcast form, search Disrupt Education on any of the following podcast platforms: Anchor, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Breaker, Castbox, Overcast, Radio Public, Pocket Cast, Spotify, or Stitcher. Welcome to this episode of Disrupt Education. I have a very special guest today, the Real Rap with Reynolds. CJ Reynolds is with me today. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing awesome, man. Thanks.
Great. Can you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do, and then jump into your educational path, and then we'll get into some juice.
Sure. So I teach ninth grade literature and the history of hip hop in West Philadelphia at an all-boys school there. And I've been teaching, this will be my 15th year in the classroom, which when I first started teaching, that seemed like a lifetime, and I thought I'd have it all figured out. But I'm slowly realizing that it's a new game every single year that I'm trying to sort of reinvent in some ways. So not a traditional path. I didn't like high school. I was a very good C student and liked my friends more than I liked school. But I got out of high school. I wanted to be a drummer. Then I thought I was going to be a priest. Then I thought I was going to be a clown that traveled the world and saw children in hospitals all over the place. And then somehow teaching ended up being like the culmination of all that stuff. So yeah, my family was much more pleased with me going into education than being a traveling clown. So as I imagine most families would be. So
a lot of pivots in there, all over the place, and then you landed on, what was it about teaching that really kind of pulled you in?
I think, it was the combination of the other things I wanted to be, right? It was being on stage essentially every day, like everyone's focus hopefully is on you, if I'm doing something right. And then it was being able to deeply care. So my faith has I spent time in a monastery, and I really love this idea of deeply caring for people on the fringe. And so that was wrapped up in it. And then I'm just kind of like a jackass by nature. So, getting paid to do that and using my humor and my love for kidding around, all that together is kind of how I roll in class. I mean, and I like reading also. I guess that played a part in it too. But it was just that kind of combination of things that brought it all together.
You bring a lot of students into your social media world, which is cool. I follow you on Instagram a lot, the YouTube, do a lot of chats. Tell us a little bit about how it got to that, right? So you said you're a little bit of a rebel, but tell us a little bit about your school first and the students in it, and then just the path, some of the one or two great paths that you've seen with some students.
So I teach in inner city West Philadelphia. So my student population, we're 99% African American. There was, up till last year, there was one Hispanic kid and one Asian kid. And whenever we had to take a picture, for the paper, we try to look real diverse, but it was not the case. But our students pull from all over the city, right? So it's not just inner city Philadelphia. It's parents that couldn't get their kids into a private school or didn't want to pay for private school again. So we were an alternative to that. But the neighborhood in which I teach it's a rough one. I mean, there's shootings down the street. Last year, someone was shot outside of my classroom, not a student, but someone from the neighborhood. And, part of having students on YouTube was to begin with, was students laughing at me that I had 10 subscribers on YouTube, right? Which I'm fairly certain was my wife, my grandmother, and my grandmother's friends. I think that those are my core group in the beginning. And then showing students, it was a really great lesson in here's how you grow something, right? And so we sort of joke that this is the first time in my life where I had to build something that it was a young man's game. There are not guys our age do not exist on YouTube,
right,
unless they're doing a tech review or something. But it is something that I had to figure out how to do. I had to figure out how to edit, figure out how to shoot stuff, figure out what was interesting to people or what might be interesting to people. And so what I really did was just create a YouTube channel that I wish existed when I started teaching. And through the growth of that, students saw that I was gaining subscribers. And when I got to my first 100, I think the biggest student in school had like 400 or 500 subscribers. Then when I passed them, was like, oh, the real deal, bro. Like he's really growing. Then when we got to 1,000, that was huge. We had like a big party in class. It was like such a huge deal to reach 1,000 subscribers. And then when like brand deals started coming in and all this stuff started happening, the most exciting thing about that was to be able to live this out in real time in front of my students who've been along the journey. And so where my students kind of came in was, one, everyone wants to be on YouTube because they're just like, oh, be famous. So they're always in there trying to like make their mark. But for me, it was a lot of folks think they know what it looks like or is like to be a young black man in West Philadelphia. And I wanted to sort of change that conversation a little bit, not by me telling everyone how great my students were, because I could do that all day long, but like letting them have a platform to tell their own story and to communicate things like I ask questions from everything from what's something weird that you like the smell of, or like why do you love your mom? What's something your mom does that you love, or who's your hero, or what do you want to be when you grow up? And those answers are much different a lot of times than people think they're going to be. And so that was sort of the impetus to like content I started making on Instagram and on Facebook. And so last year we did a show on Instagram called Big Guy Little Car, which was me and the big guys I drove home, driving home, and just the ridiculous stuff they would talk about every day. That I'm like, they would get into arguments about like whether water was wet. And I'm like, is this a real conversation? And so I just was like, I don't think people see the side of my students enough, because as soon as they hit the street, as soon as your shoes are on the street, it's a different game. Like the front's on, you got front for the neighborhood. But when you're in the car or in the classroom, it's just nonsense. And it's really something really lovable about it. And really, it changes people's minds about what they think my students are.
It's so true. I just got done taking my son and two other 14-year-olds to a baseball game this past weekend. And yeah, the conversations are crazy. And it makes it entertaining, but it does bring a life, a humanistic aspect to it, which is great because, you know how media and everything else, stereotypes, portrayals, racism, all these other things come into play. And I think you give a great look at that. So with that being said, let's jump to the biggest disrupt education question. And how would, if you had the power, or you do have the power within your classroom, but systematically, what are one or two big things that you would change about the educational system to basically just improve it in this day and age?
I think the biggest thing is that teachers are largely not thought of as professionals, right? And even if we say they are, they're not treated as such, right? So like teachers just don't have freedom in the classroom. We give them scripted lesson plans. Everyone in my kids' school that they were just going to, everyone in my daughter's fourth grade classroom next year at 2:00 on any given day is doing the same thing. Like every single class is doing the same thing. And so we talk about things like No Child Left Behind, but it's really, the train's moving, and if you don't jump on it, you are left behind. And so that's how we get kids that are in ninth grade that are on a second grade reading level, because there's just not enough resources and teachers are not given the autonomy in the classroom. And so at my school, I'm really lucky. I have almost complete autonomy in my classroom. I mean, the fact that I teach a class called the History of Hip Hop, which was designed by me, the curriculum was written by me. I do anything that I want. I have DJs come in and teach kids how to spin old school vinyl. We have African drummers come in and talk about the connection between African music and bass in hip hop. I've had dancers come in. I've gone on trips down to alleyways of Philadelphia to go look at graffiti and talk about symbolism and the history of that and where that all sort of comes from. And then tying that back into lessons, right?
Yeah.
All of my lessons last year were largely taught either through the lens of Fortnite or Marvel movies, right? That was like most major connections I made, because that's where the student's focus is. And so it's not that everyone has to teach through those particular lenses. Maybe your students really like hunting or monster trucks or fishing or auto mechanics, whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
But it's about giving teachers the freedom to deep dive into the world of their students and then bring back what they've learned to teach through that lens. Because I just think if in high school, if any teacher had ever taught through like if they connected the Odyssey to Star Wars, or if they had talked about simile and metaphor in regards to, I don't know, a Tribe Called Quest song, it would have blown my mind, right? And we still don't see this. We're still playing the same old game. Someone said recently, I heard on a podcast or something, that if Rip Van Winkle was alive today, like if this is the moment that he woke up from and he had been alive 100 years ago, the public education system is the only thing that is exactly the same.
Yeah.
We're still sitting in rows. We're still giving out information, asking students to regurgitate it. We put it under the guise of 21st century education, but it's really not. It is not diversified. It is not inclusive. But if we just trust teachers who are professionals, who love their craft and are passionate about it, it would literally change education.
Right. What then, with that autonomy, is there something curriculum-wise that you would focus on differently, or would you say it would come through what the students are in at the moment, or would you tie two things together?
I think with regards to curriculum, for my students, I think it depends on where you are, and I think it depends on what path your students want to take. There's this real big push for college right now, but college degrees have never been more watered down than they are now. And so I just think that college isn't the path for everyone, and in some ways we're setting students up for failure by sending them to college, because I have guys that are going to college because they think that's what they're supposed to do, and then they leave. And then now they have $20,000 in debt, and college was never the move for them anyway because they wanted to be something else. And so that's disheartening, because now you're just caught up in the system of you have debt. Like now you can't even just go try stuff because you have a $500 check every month that needs to be written. So you have to figure that out. And I just think that's not the move, And other than that, I think, for my students, it's about like learning. I don't know if this is directly answering your question, but like learning what their story is and how that is connecting to curriculum. Like we don't spend enough time on why we're studying what we're studying. We're studying things because it's going to be on the test, because I told you so, because it's important, because you need to know this. And instead saying, no, the hero's journey, the Odyssey, the hero's journey is the blueprint for every hero movie ever. It is the blueprint, hopefully, for your life, where you are going to go out, have great challenges, and if you weather the storm, you can bring important information back and then better your own community, right? Like we're not looking at Lord of the Flies or the way that we do algebra or learning chemistry as a way of like, no, this is actually challenging your mind, right? So when my students, they always like to come in and kind of complain about algebra. And then I say, look, I don't teach algebra. I'm terrible at math. But my thinking is that if you do a push-up, you will never use that exact motion for anything. If you get off the floor in a push-up mode, that's kind of weird, man. So you're never going to do a pull-up like that. Like, unless you fall off a cliff, you suddenly hang on, and the last minute you squeeze up, you're never going to do that, right? But you do the exercise because it strengthens something in you, right? So the chemistry, the biology, the math, even if that's not where your life is headed, it is still learning to exercise your brain in a certain way that is building muscle for something else. It is challenging you in ways that you don't see otherwise. And I don't think we spend enough time like breaking down the why to our students.
Right. Excellent stuff. Where can people find you?
I am Real Rap with Reynolds all over the internet. So Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. No TikTok yet, but if that's where all the attention is, bro, that might be next year's.
I'm going to tell you, I've tried a little TikTok. It didn't work out very well, but my 11-year-old is trying to teach me, so she's doing a good job with that.
It's certain things that your kids know better than you, right? Where it's like, all right, I will take a lesson from you on this one.
Learning from our youth is really where it's at, man, and I appreciate that. Last question: what's the next move for CJ Reynolds?
So I just wrote a book I don't have a date yet, but I'm hoping this fall that comes out. It's getting put out by Dave Burgess's company. And then I have secret plans that are dropping on August 31st of this month, so that I have a big something coming out then. And then just trying to get out there and speak as much as I can. I really think that, as much as work as I put it in the classroom, it is really empowering, even through YouTube, all the 300 plus free videos that I have, the empowerment that goes out to teachers to let them know that they're not alone, that there's other people out there trying to do this as well. So you're sort of building this community of educators instead of this old tale of like, it's the one teacher in the school that's going to make all the difference. It's not fun, right? It's not practical and it's not fun. Nobody wants to go to a party by themselves unless you're Billy Idol, right? You want to like be at a party with a bunch of other awesome people that are doing cool stuff too. And so that's what I'm interested in, is like stuff like what you're doing, right here, building this community of educators that are like trying to disrupt education together.
You have a Sunday night show on YouTube. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, every Sunday night. So in my first few years of teaching, even now, Sunday night is the most terrifying night of the week, because you're just like, what am I going to do with this student? What am I going to do with this parent? What am I going to do with this lesson? My class was like literally tearing each other limb from limb last week. Like, what do we do with that? And so I created a live show on YouTube. So on Real Rap with Reynolds, it is 5 p.m. Eastern time, and you can show up and ask any question that you want. You put it in the chat, and it's not, the fun thing is it's not just me, right? Like, I'll answer any question, but there's stuff I don't have an answer for. Like, what do you do with the kid that keeps peeing himself in your kindergarten class, right? Like, I don't have an answer for that one. But the community that shows up every single week, tried and true, that are in the comments, they share stuff with people. And then if people don't want to do that, they can go to our Facebook group, Real Rap with Reynolds Teacher Talk there. It's a closed group, so you can ask any question you want. And I'd say questions get anywhere from 16 to 32 comments on every single thing. So it's really like an amazing group of people that I get to be a part of. And it gives folks, a place to feel like they can belong, they can go to, it's the Cheers of the internet. That's what we're trying to make. Is the Cheers of the internet without the alcohol.
Exactly, or maybe a little. So, look, man, I appreciate you so much, CJ. It was a pleasure actually meeting you in Austin at South by Southwest. Hopefully we'll do that again. I know we'll cross paths again sometimes, but I really appreciate what you do. You are a true disruptor of education. First year teachers out there, one last thing, and we'll try to keep this to one sentence, what's one thing that you would tell a first year teacher out there that is jumping into education? Because we are right now at the beginning of our school years, or they're coming up.
Yeah, I think find one kid that thinks they're invisible and let them know that they're visible. The end.
That's excellent, man. Thank you so much. If you all want to check out The Real Rap with Reynolds, we'll have all the information up below. Appreciate you being here, my brother. We just keep pushing in education and making a difference, and hopefully we'll wake up Rip Van Winkle a little bit later, if you know what I'm saying.
I hear you. Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
All right, guys. We'll see you until next time. This is Disrupt Education.